Hello everyone and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today we are going to look at competency-based assessment and what will be our training content for this video. Number one, we're going to look at introduction to competency-based assessment. Number two, we are going to look at types and methods of assessment. Number three, we're going to look at design and development of assessment tools. Number four, we're going to look at validation of assessments. Number five, we're going to look at introduction to portfolio of evidence. Number six, we are going to look at maintenance of portfolio of evidence. So now let's look at our first topic, that is introduction to competency-based assessment, or better known as CBA. So before we continue, let's now define what is CBA. So basically, CBA is collecting evidence used to make a judgment or a decision about whether an individual or a candidate is competent in relation to a particular occupational standards. So what are the outcomes of a CBA? So there are only two outcomes. The candidate can either be competent or not yet competent. Notice the language there is not yet competent. We don't say not competent, it's not yet competent. So let's continue. So to gain the competent rating, a candidate must score at a determined level of the total points marks in the theory or written test, and the candidate must score at a determined level of the total points in the practical test for the relevant occupation. For CBET, the core subjects or core units are the ones which have both theory and practical. But for common and basic units, we only have a theory or written assessment. So what are these determined levels? Okay, for certification purposes, internal assessments conducted during training in the institutions or in the colleges will consist of a weighting of 60%, while external assessments conducted by TVET CDAC will consist of 40%. So you notice here that the internal assessments are very important because they constitute 60%, which are now assessed using the portfolio of evidence that we are going to look at later. So what are the weighting depending on various levels? So according to Kenya National Qualification, level number 3, which is below artisan, for practical it is 80, and for theory it is 20. For level 4, which is equivalent to artisan, the practical carries a weighting of 70%, while the theory carries a weighting of 30. For level 5, which is equivalent to certificate, the practical carries a weighting of 60%, while the theory carries a weighting of 40%. For level 6, which is equivalent to a diploma level, the weighting is 50-50. So the pass mark for the candidate to be competent is 50 in all the cases. So I need you to notice something. The practical reduces, the weighting of the practical reduces as you increase the level. That means for level 3 it is 80, and it reduces as you proceed to level 6. But for the theory it is the other way around. It decreases from level 3, or rather it increases from level 3 all the way to level 6. So what are the levels of competency? In NEC-based assessment, we used to talk of pass, credit, distinction. But in CBET, or in competency-based education system, if a candidate scores 50 to 64, we say that candidate is competent. If they score between 65 to 79, we say that candidate is proficient or has acquired proficiency. Their candidate scores between 80 to 100, that candidate has mastery. If a candidate scores below 49, that candidate is not yet competent. So what is the philosophy of CBA? The CBA is based on the following philosophy, that is, it is criterion reference. What that means is that assessment is performed against occupational standards. It is evidence-based. What does that mean? It means there must be a proof of performance. Number 3, it is participatory. It means then the candidates are involved in the process. So what are the components of CBA? Number 1, there must be standards. These are the benchmarks of performance. Then there must be evidence collection. What does that mean? It means established methods for the collection of evidence of competence. Then the quality assurance. Assurance of quality of process, internal and external verification. And of course, there must be outcomes. Outcomes should be specified to the point where they are clear and transparent. So what are the principles of competency-based assessment? Number 1 is reliability. So what does that mean? There must be a degree of consistency. Number 2, flexibility. It means that it should not disadvantage other candidates. Number 3, it must be fair. It means all candidates should be given opportunities, all candidates. It must be valid. It means that all requirements of the unit of competence must be covered. So, rules of evidence when collecting evidence in competency-based education. Rule number 1, sufficiency. So when you are setting a paper, you should consider all aspects of the performance criteria. You should not just assess one topic. You should make sure you assess at least all the topics. Number 2, it should be current. The evidence demonstrates the candidate's recent knowledge and skills. For instance, in programming, you should assess the most recent programming language. So it continues, it must be authentic. That means it must be the candidate's own original work. Number 4, it must be valid. There is clear relationship between the evidence requirements of the unit and the competency on which this assessment judgment is made. In the next video, I'm going to look at types and methods of assessment. Thank you for watching.